So last week we released 1.10.2 and I updated the source code package to fix the build.cmd, which was not working based on the wrong VS version that I was checking. Now it's been fixed, validated by some users, and I didn't have to update any binary because it was just a source release, so that was good. So far, I haven't seen any report of 1.10.2 not working. There is a bug though from someone on the layout when you try to create your custom element part that I have to check, but that's the only issue I've seen. So that's good. Status. So next step is to ship 1.11. That's what we said we will do once we have shipped 1.10.2. So we'll go toward this target. Demos. Do we have demos? Nick, you have a demo?
Nope.
Okay, it will be a topic then.
What was I meant to demo?
What have you done?
I don't know, some testing stuff.
Voilà. Demos. Demos. Projection/queries. The beginning of what it could be. Based on the discussions from last week. Did we talk about it actually last week or 2 weeks ago? Maybe 2 weeks ago. We talked about testing last week, and we talked about queries 2 weeks ago. So I've done something this week to show that. Demos, topics, maybe localization. It's not yet done, but there is a PR going on, and some things that were designed before have been implemented by Lucas, so that's very good. I will talk about it. Just as an update, demos. Any other demo? I didn't ask.
I mean, I can demo testing. It's Selenium's really slow at the moment for some reason. So, like, I know it's like watching ice melt.
If it's slower than Orchard one,
demo the code if you want.
Yeah, we can look at the code. Yes. Definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's see for the status. So 1.10.2 done. Oh yes. Demos, topics, documentation. Maybe look at what Antoine has done, but we talked about it also last week to see if there is any update or discussion about it. And I think that's it for the demos and the topics. Status. Not sure there is much thing on Orchard 1 because we shipped. Nope. Fixing build and Lombic fixing the text.LineEncode token did handle all the ending lines. Okay. Good. That's it for Orchard 1, Orchard 2. I won't go over my branch for queries because I will demo it. So here, 7 days. Jean-Thierry working on dotnet-watch. Nick working on functional test. That's the branch. Green test, good. Updating editorconfig. So as a reminder, we have an editorconfig file in the solution so that Visual Studio 2017 can take that into account, and I updated this one. So we have the system settings at first, like in the ASP.NET repository. This one we don't care. Just for the indexer. Antoine working on documentation, and we merged the branch. So now there is a mdocs file to define the talk of the documentation project. Antoine, have you set up the GitHub pages already or not?
No.
Okay, next step. Do we need to do something?
I can try, yes.
Because I assume that if we have the YAML file, maybe we should see the docs now at some point.
I know how can I can do it manually, but I don't know.
I'm sure it can be automated. It has to be automated. Alright, we'll see. I'm sure there's a way. GitHub pages should support that. Hello. Refactoring from Jean-Thierry on the modules framework, modular framework. So it's just referencing now the AsModule instead of referencing abstractions, because AsModule references abstractions. Nothing important here. Test from Nick. Jean-Thierry is still working on dotnet-watch. We merged this, which is fixing the Travis CI. So now all the tests are run on the Travis CI, and the test scripts are much simpler. Example, you see all the green, which means it has been removed, so less things, and 4 new lines, but it's a win because there are less things. And I removed all the build script that we had that were not used, that are not used anymore. So it's even more red stuff that we can remove. So now the script, the CI files are very simple and just use .NET test, .NET build, .NET restore. That's it, no specific script. So that's good. And this I'm discovering. Oh, that's a branch. That's not a master. Okay, good. So there must be a PR going on. It's updating the OpenIddict. Oh, this is released now. Okay, good. OpenIddict projects for the OpenID project. So that's good. Oh, and we can't see my branch here because maybe it's on the other computer. So let me show you what I've done. If it works. Yes. Visual Studio. This is not my taskbar. How do I show the taskbar? Oh, okay, now it's appearing. So I will open this one. And first I need to sync. And go to the branch which is querying. Querying and that querying. So as a reminder, 2 weeks ago we talked about the .liquid templates, how to be able to create some custom views / templates, but let's call them views, view pages, like liquid pages from the admin. And one thing we might want to do usually when we want to create custom pages on a custom route is to do some queries on the data that we manage and to display and to render this data. So this is why the discussion was about how to split the querying and the queries from the rendering of the result of the queries and the manipulation of the data from the queries. So the suggestion for Bertrand mostly, and also Sergio, was to have a separate modules to do the queries. Like we have in Orchard.One, we have a projection module, but the projection module contains queries and rendering. So here we will have just the queries and be able to use different kinds of queries, okay, and extensible. So anyone could provide a new way to query data. Way being different UI to set up the query, like in Orchard.One, or just a SQL query, or just a Lucene query, or a specific DSL query, whatever you want. In the end, you just have content items or raw data, up to you. So it's not that easy. And what I've done here, so let's build. Okay, it's waiting. Okay, building. So I worked on first the Lucene one. I worked on the Lucene one because we already have some support for indexing all the fields and everything in Lucene, because we have the search engine working. So it was easier to have some data to manipulate. The issue with Lucene is that if you look Lucene query syntax, if you look at that, so Lucene has a query parser, okay? So it looks like, it's funny because I find Microsoft Docs for that. This, no, that's an issue. The first one. Okay, so that there is this representation, so field colon the text and field colon some text also. So there is a way to do that, and you can do prefix matches and pattern matching and boosting and things like this, or ranges. So it's very nice, but it's super useless when you want to do real queries. So that's good for full text queries, like for a search engine to search some documents based on full text search, because everything you will pass in quotes here will be analyzed. So you will lose the actual value of that. It will be simplified. Okay, it will be analyzed in the Lucene term. So you can't search on a field with the value 10, for instance, because when it's analyzed, it's lost. So this query language is useless for us in the case of doing some data rated queries. So we can't use that, and that was the first surprise. I thought we could use that, but we can't actually. The only way to do what is called term search is to use the API, like new term query, new Boolean query, and so on. So we need a language because we can't use the API directly in the UI, in the admin, but we still need to create the API, and we can't use the Lucene syntax. And I found one syntax which is actually super cool and allows everything. This is the Elasticsearch. So the Elasticsearch service, so Elasticsearch is a server based on Lucene. Okay, it's Lucene as a service. And I assume they realized the same thing like 100 years before us, and they said, okay, so we'll make our own query language to access to Lucene. And the idea is that they just have a JSON document representing the Lucene API and some helpers also. And this way you can do everything you can do with Lucene, because it's just a mapping to the API. So everything which is doable in the API, you can do with this Elasticsearch. Oh crap, I don't have a site. Elasticsearch language. Let me see. Blog. I can use SQLite. I can use SQLite. I think I can use SQLite, or did I find an issue with that? I'm not sure, so I will use SQL Server. Everyone's still here? Not lost? Okay, thank you. I don't hear anyone, so I'm scared. Admin. And I will enable the queries module. So the queries module, design modules. Enable. And this one, it will be a factor. So what it adds is Lucene queries. But in the end, we should have a one single entry, point of entry to create the queries, but right now it's just for testing. So I have Lucene queries here. I have Lucene indices. So I need to actually create an index and create some content. So I will do a new content type just to search. I will person, this is what I use to test. Person, and I will add a title, save, and a field, because it has to work with fields. And the field, I will use a numeric field, and I call it age for my demo, and scale 0 for integers, default value I don't care, save, include this element in index, and I store it. Okay, so I can retrieve the value. I don't analyze it, store it, and that should be okay. Save, and now I need some content. New person. Oh, people. So what I want? That's sad. Title. I will use my family. Okay. Because it's already in the drop down. I lost the database. I'm sad. Okay. Then, if I go to design site Lucene indexes, I will add an index. I will call search. And if I query it, at some point when it's indexed, I should see the content. Oh, I think that's it. I found a bug in SQLite, I think, with this query, so that's why I can't use SQLite with that. It's file. So if I go to Orchard, CMS, logs, just to check, okay, there is no issue. So it should appear. At some point. Unless I forgot something. Person. I don't have indexing properties here. This title will be indexed because this will be a display type. This one is indexed. Okay, now it works. So the 4 of them, and I don't have a blog post indexed here, and that's sad, but that will do. Okay, and if I show the fields, there is a UI bug. Who cares? These are all the fields which are stored, and you see age is also stored. Okay, that's fine. And now if I go to queries, this is very simple UI, and what I can do is queries. I have many samples here. So the first thing we can do, you can see it's easy. I can't increase the size like this. It works. So it's a JSON document which has to start with query, and there will be a filter after later query, and then you can define the type of query you want. So the simplest one is term. For the term named content, content item, content type, look for page. This will should return 0 because pages are not indexed. But if I do person query, it returns, I will hit the 5, 8 milliseconds, it returns the 4 items. Okay? And that's the idea. So you can do things like this, and then the queries should, this way you can have multiple ORs, should have this thing or this thing, example page or blog post. Up. I want a Boolean query, should, so it's a or, term, so this will be page or blog post for the content type. Okay, and that will work. Right now I will just have blog post, but no, I will just have person, but that's how it works. Okay, we can do so when you want to add boosting on the field or more options, you can use an object for the field value and put a boost. So pages will be on top of blog post if you have pages. You can do query string. Query string is interesting because it's actually the simple Lucene full text language as an API parameter. So we can do that, and so if you want to express that in Lucene queries, you can have the standard Lucene queries inside this value. We can also do range, so age between 1 and 20. Let's see if it works. Works, okay. Support for must, so it has to be age greater than 20, and it has to have a display text, which is that, so the title. So we can do end, see, with ranges, beautiful. Wildcard supported, p anything, on any field, okay, and regex also are supported, because Lucene supports regex. So that's just a set of examples we can do, and that's a good start. So that's the result right now. So now we can do Lucene queries and later reuse the values directly in our templates. The idea being that we can name those queries and probably also pass parameters, and from the view you can just invoke the query and the parameters and then reuse the query everywhere. And if I can remember something that Bertrand said a few years ago, the idea was to be able to also have some default UI that is based on queries like this. So if we want to change how some queries, we can just edit the query and not have to redo the full view and controller and everything. So that's also a possibility that we have also with that. Questions?
So this isn't Orchard specific, right? So if someone wanted to use it outside of Orchard, you need to use YesSQL, maybe?
No, it has nothing to do with YesSQL.
Okay, cool.
It's just Lucene. So if you want to use it with
That's
Lucene,
interesting. So it is literally just Lucene.
well, it's the Elasticsearch language. So if you want to use the same queries with Elasticsearch, you can, because they are Elasticsearch queries. So the same queries will work with Elasticsearch, which is based on Lucene. But if you want to use this language for Lucene, actually, maybe someone already did that. I don't think so, because Elasticsearch is written in Java, I think. Yeah, I'm not sure. So, well, we could expose this package as a Lucene extension, so you can do queries on Lucene using this language, which is much better than the default Lucene parser that they have.
We should totally see if someone's already done that, but
I think they haven't. I haven't found anything like this. So
what's the implementation like? I'm a little confused.
Oh my god, it's bad, but I can show you. No, I mean, it was a prototype first. We could totally refactor it, so please bear with me. Let me show you the module. It's in the module. First, it's in the module, which is bad, but it's so simply refactorable that I'm like, well, query DSL builder. You pass an analyzer, which will be the default analyzer, to analyze the things if we need to analyze, but it will be extensible later because we need to be able to define analyzers. And you see here, based on the type of query, so you pass a JSON document, which is the query, and I'm just taking each node. Oh, is it a terms query? Is it a range query, a prefix, wildcard, a match phrase, blah, 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 and so on. You see bool queries. And then I say, okay, with this node, create a match query. And the create match query will say, okay, if it's a string, it's this kind of Boolean query. If it's an object, then this is this kind of Boolean query. And in the end, look at that. What is interesting is that you see it's building a new match all docs query, which is a Lucene object. So it's just creating a Lucene API graph, and it returns it. This is a Lucene query object.
So it's implementing Elasticsearch over the regular Lucene querying.
Yes, but Elasticsearch is just that.
Yeah,
Okay.
Sure. So it's like an implementation of Elasticsearch.
I will never say that.
It's live.
If you limit Elasticsearch to just a querying engine, yes, but it's not the case.
Okay, so it's an implementation of the Elasticsearch
querying language. Correct.
And is it so? You could technically have another kind of querying that does, I don't know, some MapReduce or whatever crazy stuff.
On Lucene or what?
No, not necessarily on Lucene. And still present the same APIs. Does that make sense?
When you say API, I'm like terms, range, everything is very specific to Lucene, actually.
Right.
It's a mapping to the API. So, and I don't know anything else than the same kind of API. So I will not even reuse the same thing. We could have the same idea, like having a JSON document expressing some things, but this schema is super specific to Lucene.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, I thought about it. So next step after Lucene is to do SQL, okay? Because we have some data in SQL that we don't have in Lucene, and SQL has other issues actually. So SQL. So the main issue I have with querying is security. We need custom DSLs because of security. We need to be able to limit what users can type inside. They can't alter the data with a query like that. Because if we can alter the data, you can change database, access other databases information, so that's bad. On a multi-tenant, that's bad because you have access to other data. But also in terms of your own app, if you give access to this thing to an end user, to an editor, you need to be sure that you won't break the site or won't elevate his rights. So we need a custom DSL to ensure that they don't type anything. And with SQL, it's even harder because if you allow someone to type SQL, okay, how do you limit it to select? How do you limit they don't do an update? And how do you limit the select will not go over another tenant, like tenant 1 and then content, okay? So we need to ensure that. So we can't expose the SQL as is. And yet we want to be able, I'd like to be able as a user to type any SQL because it's faster, simpler. I don't have to, I'm not limited to anything that the abstraction will provide. So I'd like to be able to do that. So we will have to have a representation of the SQL which can be JSON or which can be SQL, but we will have to parse the SQL first to kind of prepare, like a HQL. Bertrand mentioned that last time. Maybe it will be something like HQL, in the way that HQL is looking a lot like SQL and is parsed and verified and secure. So with HQL, we won't be able to type update because no, we parsed the SQL query. It's an update. I don't accept it. Or when you say select from, and then you type something, foo, we will ensure that is a table, doesn't contain things like this, so you can inject some SQL from whatever reason. It will be converted and ensure that it's a table. So we have to pre-process all the things here. It can't be anything. Or we can also provide a simpler DSL, like I did for the queries, or like content type. Even with a JSON document, it could be something like content type, person, and something like equals and two values, like, I don't know, or, things like this.
So how do we, so the query that you've put here,
Mm-hmm.
if I publish a document, that I don't, if user A publishes a document that user B isn't allowed to see, how can I stop him from seeing that document?
You know the answer, and thank you for the question for the others. And if you don't know the answer, I will shout at you. So, permission in Orchard is done at runtime.
Yeah.
It's something which is C# code driven. Unless we can put some C# code in Lucene and ask Lucene to run some C# code, we can't filter anything. Or what we filter won't be exact, so that's even worse. So the only solution is you query, and then when you execute the query, when you get the result, you call another API which might be executed on the server side to filter the results. Or yourself, in your for each, you say if authorize async, blah, 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 can see or can display, can edit, whatever, this item, I display it. Otherwise, I don't display it.
What about storing the permissions for roles within the
Again,
document?
if you store the permission and the roles and everything, not everything is written as this logic, because the ownership, for instance, the content item permissions, all the things are dynamic. They can't be known. You can have a permission which defines per time, like you can't edit things on Sundays because we have a permission handler. So many things are done by code and not based on roles and permissions. Like permissions are implied and dynamically implied based on who you are. So it can't be as simple.
No. Okay, that makes sense. Then we just need to, because I just remember in Orchard 1, the extension point for doing this was quite difficult.
Same thing. Yeah, I mean, same thing in Orchard 1 because we have permission handlers.
Yeah, totally. Okay. Interesting.
Then we can have helpers or queries which will do server-side queries to filter things like, remove all the content items that are not allowed to display for the current user. And then it will be filtered. But then there is issue with paging and so on because you will get 100 results, but the user can see only one, and you will say, there are 10 pages, but whatever page he clicks, there's only nothing appearing because everything is filtered out. Always the issue with that. We can also do a module which will index the roles and the permission, and then that's up to you in the query to say, give me all the content items with the roles and permissions matching the current user. And then that's fine, but you know that it won't go through the permission handlers. It will just go through the roles and permissions that you know.
Yeah, I just remember it being a bit of a pain in Orchard 1. I remember people kept asking for it when I was building their sites.
As long as you're based on permission and roles, it's doable. But it's an assumption, and you have to agree with the fact that, okay, if there is a dynamic permission, it won't go over that. And it might be a security issue, but sometimes it's, and that's fine. So we can totally index the permissions for a content item.
Okay.
So, and this won't limit that. So as long as we index the values, that's doable. It's just another field with the permission, and you just say permission here, colon, and the permission you want, or the permissions you want, because there is a terms also query when you can have multiple terms.
Yeah, that sounds good. And can I dynamically inject values into this query?
Inject what?
So you see, we've got
values. Yes, we need to support parameters.
Okay, yeah, parameters. That's what I meant. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So either it will be something like with a custom syntax like a name, okay, mustache or whatever, like a template, or something that we explicitly match in strings or in values here. Okay, so something like this, and then when we get the query, we can place the values from there. So I think the query should just have parameters, like a SQL query will have at P1, you see, things like this. And then when we evaluate the query, we pass a list of values, and the query engine will just substitute the values with the parameters. That's the idea. Same thing for sorting and everything. So that's very important to be able to parameterize that, because there might be some values from query string and from anywhere, from API, but this thing should not care about it. It should just say, I'm parameterizable by this thing. And then the one who calls the query should be able to provide the values.
Okay, cool.
So that's it.
As long as we I think we should keep parameter substitution at least consistent across our code base, though, because we've got it different in a few places. So,
what do you mean?
Well, we use mustache in one place, so if we were going to use, maybe we should use mustache here to keep it consistent.
Elasticsearch uses mustache actually.
Ah, okay, then there we go. Fantastic.
But this is the Elasticsearch language, but we are free to use whatever we want. It can be double win if we use the same thing as them, but Elasticsearch, where did I see that? Specialized query. Templates, search template. Specialized queries. I know where mentioned that, but yeah, they support something, and they say then you need to escape because blah blah blah. Okay, that's I think that's all. Next is to integrate it with the templates to show that from a liquid page you can invoke another query, name the queries and pass parameters, and also have another query engine based on SQL. SQL or simple SQL might be advanced. We can also provide a simple content item DSL first. Lucene can do that, but if you don't want to use Lucene, but just you remember the language I created last time? It was simple dot content types dot whatever field equals value, something like this. I don't remember. That could be a simple DSL like that. Feel free to give ideas. That's it. Another question. Topics. Testing. Nick, what can you say about testing?
Okay, so far I've written in some tests. I can show you my screen if you want.
Okay, everyone can see.
Okay, cool. So I've worked a little bit on testing over the last couple of days, I guess. And I'll show you what I've got so far. So I've taken the stuff that the music, the music store. The music store. And I've tried to just start by doing some simple smoke tests for Orchard. One of the issues we've got at the moment is that Selenium doesn't really support .NET-Core. So these tests are running off of a .NET-Core port on a pull request and using Koipu as the wrapper DSL around it. So what's interesting here is I'm using the .NET 2, not .NET 2, the Net Standard 2 APIs to deploy my app. So what's pretty cool is that this piece of code here actually deploys my app, and I'm running within the context of my app.
So it's like .NET Publish?
It's like .NET Publish, exactly. So within this using statement, I have published and I have done a .NET run.
And how long does it take to publish?
It depends on the application we're using. It takes about 30 seconds at most. Yeah, it is a lot. So the way I see it is if I'm running tests using this, then I'm going to run a lot of tests within it. So what I've decided is by doing this, I'm just going to run a set of smoke tests. So the smoke tests are
at the same time you can just deploy once, and every time you want to restart, you just delete the app data.
Well, that's yes and no, because by deleting app data, there's no guarantee that the state of the application is back to where it was before app data. Or before the deploy. So yes, you can delete app data, but that doesn't necessarily mean your application is going to be in a good state. But I'll explain what I've done. So I've basically created this. So using browser session, that kicks up Chrome, and then I've just got some little things here to set up SQL CE. So this will fill in the necessary fields to start SQL CE and we'll run the setup. Next, I'll log in as admin. You can see I'm going down here, and then I'll create a page, and then I will verify that that page exists. That works. Hard part was using this the markdown editor we have. It has a weird way of filling in text, but you know, I managed to get that working in the end using some CSS trickery. It's quite nice. Just doing this though, this here takes 5 minutes. So you can see that there, which is quite long. The majority of the time isn't really down to the deploy. Funny enough, it's down to Selenium and Chrome. The send keys, for example, there seems to be a 30-second to a minute delay between filling in text boxes, and I don't know why.
Maybe time to try Chrome headless.
I haven't used Chrome headless yet, but Chrome headless is exactly the same as Chrome, except obviously it hasn't got the window. So I will check it out, but I have a feeling it's down to this x64. I think it's down to running it in 64-bit and not 32. Now the problem is I can't verify that because XUnit doesn't run in x86. It only runs in 64-bit. So it's a bit of a chicken and the egg situation at the moment. Yeah. So once that comes through, then I'll check that out.
Yeah, if you use Chrome and a full like node-based engine, there are so many, and you don't have to use XUnit. It's just a JavaScript script from Node that talks to Chrome using the Chrome debug protocol. So it's super light, super fast.
Sorry, say that again.
If you use a Chrome headless, you can also use a Node library.
Yeah, so I was thinking about that.
And then there is no XUnit. At least for the functional test, we can do everything in JavaScript, and there are APIs like you have here to say fill, send, and whatever. And
yeah, I mean, this was super easy to do, and there's other libraries out there that do exactly. I mean, this is just if you think Capybara. This is exactly the same syntax as Capybara, as that's what Koipu was based on. So it might be that might be the best thing to do.
Because the advantage of using JavaScript and connecting directly to Chrome is that you can do the client-side JavaScript too.
Yeah, I mean, it's super fast. I just need to have a think about how we're going to do that. The other nice thing is on cleanup, it deletes the app data folder, so when it breaks it down, which is quite cool. The only other thing I've been looking at is the middleware. I've been writing some tests around our middleware as we haven't got any. So just some simple ones, but what they've done is help to refactor our middleware slightly. So yeah, I only got 2, but they go green and that's cool. That's testing.
Thank you. Update on localization. Let's look at the PR. I will share. So localization means many things. But okay, I'm waiting. I see Janos can see, and Nick can see now. So localization, Orchard 2. Maybe there is an update. Let's see. Commits. May 1st. Nope. No update so far. But yesterday I reviewed the PR with him. Talked on Skype. So what he's doing here is implementing the T thing, the T caller, like in Orchard 1, and the PO files parser and support. Okay. This is this part of the view localization he's implementing. And it's funny because I had designed something for pluralization. Nick will fix my English. Pluralization. How do you say that, Nick?
Pluralization.
Thank you. So I had some design notes because it's a complex matter and we didn't support that correctly in Orchard 1, and actually implemented almost exactly like I designed it. So it's very good because it's confirming the IDs and he made the implementation. That's super good. It was funny because when I showed him the notes, he's like, "Yep, I did that," and "Yep, I did that also." So he did a PO file parser first and took most of the implementation from Orchard 1, which is good because it works. He did also, and it's implemented to work with the ASP.NET APIs because the ASP.NET has an iString localizer, okay, an iView localizer, which is based on iString localizer. So he made that, which means what is done once it's refactored correctly will be able to work in ASP.NET MVC. Doesn't have to do nothing to do with Orchard specifically. The only thing which is Orchard specific is the Orchard.localization module, which will define the logic to find the PO files in our custom system, module system, because it will look for the files in the themes, then in the modules, then in the app data, and so on. Okay, this hierarchy of priorities for the localization files, and this will be done using a new interface which will be like iLocalization file location provider or something like that, or expander. It's like the views for MVC but for localization files. So our module will have the default implementation for Orchard, but anyone can have their own implementation to look in the folders they want. And MVC, if you use MVC, there will be a default for MVC which is not modular. Okay. So that will be perfect for that. So he did that, and then he did the pluralization. Oh my god! Which let me show you the design actually, and then the implementation. So if I have that, Orchard 2 localization. So to explain how it works today. Today we have this thing, something like this: T, a number, 1 day, and n days, like 2 days, and so on. And we pass the number as the first parameter, like this, and it's the 0 here. Okay, that's how it works. It's an English first pluralization, and in Orchard 1, it's almost English only because there are only 2 ways to pluralize things. In other languages, there are different forms of plurals. For instance, in Russian, they have 6 forms or something like this, meaning if it's 0, then this is how to show that. If it's 1, then this is how to show that. If it's 4, then this is there. If it's 20, this is the other form. If it's a modulo of 100, then it's this other form. So it's complex. So it's not just 2 values that you have to pass. It's like n values. And PO files support that. So when we translate 1 string, we provide 2 strings in English, but we can provide 6 strings in Russian and 4 strings in the other language, and so on. Okay, that's the. If you want to say, okay. So that's the idea. So in Orchard 1, we just supported 2 strings. That's bad. So the idea is now it's supported, and when we call the helper, the actual interface will be t.plural, and will support the number, the string as the key. Sorry, the number, a set of strings as the keys, and the object parameters. Okay, so if you pass 2 for English, you'll pass 2 strings. For Russian, you'll pass n strings. But this is just the API call, because actually what you will call is an extension method that will call this one. But this extension method will be specific to your language. So when we define the views and we define the default localization, I assume, let's agree that we will target English first. So the extension method we will provide in the module will be English first with 2 strings. Okay, but the PO files will be able to support n strings, and we will switch to the n strings based on the current culture. At the same time, if you decide that your first language in your modular app is not English but is Russian, then you will use our own extension method that will use the 6 strings by default. So you don't have to provide a localization for Russian because it's your first language. Everything will be in your views. Okay, and then you will have the English as a localization file. So that's how it will work. And Czech, for instance, has 3 strings. So if you decide to use Czech as the first language, then you will provide all your views with 3 strings, and it will be Czech. Okay, that's the idea. So it will support everything. Then what the tricky part, and this is what I wrote here, there is a website that references all the rules for all the languages. This is very interesting. So let's look at English. Which says that if you have, there are 2 rules, the rule number 1 and the rule named other. The rule named 1 is that if you have the number equals 1, then this is how you display it. Otherwise, you display it the other way. So this is the rule for 1 and the rule for the other numbers. So 1 day or 0 days, 2 days, 100 days, and so on. Okay, this is how it's mapped. And if you look at Czech, here there are 3 rules. The rule named 1, named few, and named many. They are just strings, you don't care. So for 1 you have this rule, for 2 to 4 you have this, and then for anything else you have this other form. So you need 3 forms. And you see the rules here are explained in this column. And all the rules for all the languages. Here 3 rules, and you see how complex it can be. If it's a modulo of 10 or a modulo of 100 or what, it can be super complex. And there is an XML file that goes with that. Okay, so you can get the value as XML. And if you look at what Lucas has done.
Wait, we implemented this file?
Yes, well, we didn't. It's a website, and unicode.org that defines that. But Lucas has, so there is a notion of provider, pluralization provider, something like that. Let me show you. This is funny because this is exactly there are 2 options that I mentioned, and I say I think we should blah blah blah, and this is exactly what he done. So and even with the same class name, and he didn't look at my notes. Okay, same class name. So he made rule provider. So this is an interface that you can implement. We will provide an implementation. But you can define your own rules, because if you think that the rules here are wrong, you can implement your own. It's just a switch case, but I asked him to convert it in dictionary to be faster. And you see, for instance, for en, the rule, like for these other languages, is, oops, too far away. If is n is not 1, return the first version. The first string, the second, which is indexed based on 0, or if it's 1, then return the string number 0. Okay, so 2 forms, form 1, form 0, and form 1. For Icelandic, form 2 and form 1 and form 0, based on different logic. You see, so every language has a custom lambda to evaluate for the current n. How many items, what form should we use? The form 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. Okay, and some are complex. So this is a provider, a default provider for based on the Unicode site here, which is mostly right. Which is right unless you decided or it's not updated or whatever. But you can also provide your own custom, another I plural rule provider, and then it will take yours first instead of this one. Okay. Like you see, all these languages, for instance, they only have 1 form. So, okay, only take the first form. There is only 1 form. So whatever the number, there is only 1 for all these languages. So that's how it works. So it's very nice. Taken some time, or maybe took it from another existing thing, and it can be generated from the XML file also. But yeah. Okay, good. And that's it. Lots of refactoring to do, but that will be great, and I hope that it will inspire the ASP.NET team, because they don't have that right now. They don't support pluralization. They know they have to work on that, and they don't support PO files. So two things that will be reusable, or they can point people to if people want to use that, because this will work with any ASP.NET application. Yeah, that's it on the localization. So hopefully it will work in a few weeks. Good. Okay, time, and we lost everyone. And that's okay.
Yeah, man. It looks really good so far.
Send the links.
What do we think about release? When are we? What do you think about 2.0? .NET Standard 2.0. When are we looking at releasing?
Right now, when they ship. When they are about to ship the RTM or whatever, we will start the migration to be ready. We can try before, but not before they are ready, because there is no preview right now. I don't know what's the official schedule, Bertrand? Do you know?
Of what?
Of the 2.0 release.
It's. Have we announced it?
That's why I'm asking. What's the official?
Yeah, I think it's together. Well, I know that it's together with Visual Studio, the Visual Studio update. And it's in July.
Okay, so July.
And ZBB is targeting the 10th of May. So if you install dailies, you can get something reasonable. Okay, so you can get the preview in advance on the 10th of May.
Okay, that's good. That I know some dates, but I don't know what's public, so that's why I'm asking. So
yeah, I think we've been pretty evasive, as we are when we.
Which makes sense, right? It's very important.
Yeah.
So Nick, yes, soon when it's ready. Not yet. We don't care right now. Telling you.
Okay.
Don't do anything. Not even use it, because there is nothing.
Well, I am. I'm using it. The test deployer stuff is all on .NET 2.
So it won't merge in a long time then.
Well, it doesn't affect anything else as long as it stays in that one package.
Yeah, when you restore, yeah, I know that will affect. I'm telling you, because I know I've been playing with that also.
I don't know, man.
Ooh, Java block.
Oh.
What are you
doing? Is that in Java?
Well, Minecraft is in Java.
No, it's because it's the Java protocol for Minecraft, the protocol of the Java version of Minecraft.
Oh.
Yeah, so here the part that's similar is the CTORS constructors dictionary. It has a dictionary of factories basically, and it's a very close pattern to what you have over there. And what's interesting is what it's doing with the default as well.
Yes, exactly. That's why I asked him to change it as a dictionary. So
yeah. So you have basically n implementations of something that are completely arbitrary because it's cultural. And yeah.
Good. Yeah, same thing. Okay. Thank you.
And this works well. It's easy to extend and.
Nice.
Yep, list of funcs.
Yeah, it's not a dictionary; it's an array here.
For in your case, but for us it will be a dictionary.
Yeah, because here the IDs of the blocks are known here, so I can afford to use an array.
And then there are dynamic ones based on some other logic.
Yeah, and okay. I like that code.
And
expression lambda of func.
So it's funny because look at that. Ready?
Yeah. You have the same code?
Well, no, but these were two options. So we could just have an API with one string. The rules can either be provided by some plural as an expression taking a number and return the index. Okay, that's what he did.
Yeah.
Or let the PO file define the rule in a specific format, and then we will compile the expression based on this format.
Oh, so it can even be extensible.
This is what I thought, but the issue is that nobody
no.
in this case it doesn't have to be. There are
No,
n
it's not
languages.
useful.
That's too much complexity for almost nothing.
Yeah.
So in the end, I think we should just have an interface and let the community provide the values. Done. And okay, and this is what you need. So that's good. That's good. Yep. That's good. Great. Okay. Thank you. Okay, done.
Sure.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks everyone.